from two angles.
Exactly, you can.
I see the left side and the right side.
I'm trying to get leave meeting. All right. Here we
Here
go.
we go. Perfect. Okay. I'm going to be a little slow on the draw tonight. I had to go to the eye doctor this afternoon. I got my eyes dilated. So,
Kevin, I went this morning, same thing.
oh, gee, that's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we have a quorum, Victoria, we are recording the meeting, correct?
Correct.
All right, the meeting is now being recorded, so time being 5:07, I will call the meeting of the Freetown Conservation Commission to order. We do have a quorum present. Before we get started, I must read the governor's order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people who may gather in one place. This meeting of the Freetown Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public can be found on the Town of Freetown website, freetownma.gov. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website or YouTube channel an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay. I've got just a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. There's been a couple of items that have requested to be continued. That would be item number 2. That's a request for determination from the Fall River Freetown State Forest. They've asked to be continued to when, Victoria? Our next meeting?
Yes, April 26th.
April 26th. Okay. There's no motions required for that. It's an RDA. We have number 5. This is for a notice of intent for Simmons Street. This was previously presented at a meeting. It's under current peer review right now. I know last week they just got out there to do the delineation review last Friday. So again, they're going to be continued to April 26th. And then that same thing goes for item number 7. That is for the 23 to 25 Gurney Road. That is, again, under peer review, and the applicant is asked to continue that to our next meeting. So I will open the public hearing for 0 Rhea Simmons Street, the applicant's Ledgeview Development in Gerald Perrant. And the scope of the work is a large-scale solar project. If there's anybody here, we're not going to be, I don't believe the applicant or anybody's here, so we're not going to hold any of the public hearing tonight. Again, we're going to honor their request to continue. So I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for 0 Simmons Street to April 26th, 5 o'clock via Zoom.
Motion made.
And I'll support the motion.
Thank you. Motion made and supported. If there's no further discussion, roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris Mather, aye. Kevin Damaris, aye. That passes unanimous. Item number 7, I will call that one back to order. That's for a proposed large-scale solar project, 23 to 25 Gurney Road in East Freetown. Called that back to order. Excuse me. Again, the applicant has asked for a continuation because of the peer review process. So I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing until April 26th, 5 o'clock via Zoom.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Motion made and supported. No further discussion. Roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
This is aye, and Kevin Damaris states aye. All right, that passes unanimously. So that's on to the April 26th also. So, that being said, we'll go back. Do we have anybody here from 41 Water Street? That's item number 4. No. The peer review, I believe, was just completed on the notice of intent. There are some, the original filing, there are some outstanding comments. The applicant has asked to meet with myself and the peer review, or it was recommended, excuse me, by peer review, and offered to meet with, so that there's clarity on the two outstanding items. Hopefully, and it's worked well when we've done this on the planning board side of things. As long we can get clarity for the applicant, so that they're not bickering back and forth, if you will, during the meeting, and it ends up being a better product for the board. I will call that public hearing back to order. And again, we have made contact with the applicant. They have been remiss in providing us with the response to the enforcement order, the notice of intent that we've asked. We have been assured that we will have that in the next couple of days. If not, then we may end up having to take further action. But they know that. We've had that conversation with them. So that being said, I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for 41 Water Street to April 26th at 5 p.m. via Zoom.
Motion made.
I'll support the motion.
Thank you. Motion made and supported. There's no further conversation or discussion on the motion. Roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris is aye. Kevin Damaris states aye. Motion passes unanimous. Okay, now we can get back to the real agenda here, or the regular agenda. Got all that out of the way. Item number 1, we have a request for determination of applicability. This is Massachusetts Coastal Railroad right-of-way. Applicant is TEC Associates, and they're represented by Lewis. And again, this, for those of us that have been on the board for a while, this is vegetation control following an approved vegetation management plan. This is an RDA, so it's not a public hearing, which means a couple of things. We're not obligated to take public input. I'd be happy if the applicant is willing to answer some questions should they arise. If you do have questions, politely raise your hand, or if there's a down time, you can just politely say, excuse me, we'll get your attention, just state your name for the record, and we'll go from there. So do we have Tom Lewis here, or anybody from?
Can you hear me?
Hi, Tom, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fine, thank you. So, for those folks that are interested in looking at the plans or any of the relevant information, if you go onto the Town of Freetown's website, that's freetownma.gov, you'll click on the boards and committees, click on Conservation Commission, and on the left-hand side, 4th item down, it says Conservation Commission Current Filings. You click on that, and all the plans, peer review, and associated paperwork are all there for you. So this document we are looking at is the RDA file for the Massachusetts Coastal Railroad right-of-way. Sorry, Tom.
No problem. Thanks for the
All right.
introduction.
Sure.
So if you want, I can just give a quick background on it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So railroads in the Commonwealth, they manage their vegetation under the rights of way regulations, which is administered by the Department of Agricultural Resources. As part of that, they're required to have a vegetation management plan through the Department of Ag, and that's a 5-year plan. So we're in the process of finalizing that now for 2021 to 2025. And as part of that plan, we're obligated to go to every municipality and obtain the confirmation of the boundary delineation for all the resource areas for both wetland and water supply. So that's why I'm here today. And I've submitted the maps. There's 3 maps in total for both what we call the Fall River line and the New Bedford lines. So that's what you mentioned is on the website.
Right. Okay. So they're having you do it under an RDA, just
Yes.
approving the delineation under the RDA,
That's right.
not the actual activity, because the activity is exempt. Am I?
Well, the activity, there's exemptions for work in the riverfront.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to apply herbicides in the buffer zone, but no closer than 10 feet to a
Right.
wetland resource. Water supply is different. There's different setbacks depending on proximity to well, or if you're in a wellhead groundwater recharge, or if you're in a surface water tributary. So there's a number of different setbacks for those. But the actual work is all administered and regulated and overseen by the Department of Agricultural Resources. So
Right.
the role of the conservation commissions is to basically review and approve the boundary delineation.
Okay. Usually that's in conjunction with other activity. It's not just asking. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to figure out in my mind, what is it, what's the determination that you guys are expecting, right? So are you expecting a negative determination?
It's actually a little of both, and it's a little confusing. And what was
Right.
the way it was explained to me by the DEP a number of years ago. And if you look at my letter and my filing,
Yeah.
the bottom paragraph of my letter, the way that's basically exactly how the DEP told me that I should
Okay.
request. So it's two exempt, a negative determination number 3 for work in the buffer,
Yeah.
negative number 5 for exempt activity in the riverfront,
right.
and then requesting a positive 2A confirming the accuracy of the boundaries.
Sure. Sounds clear as mud. No, I know exactly what it is, but I think you could have just done the positive 2A because you're not proposing any work. You're just proposing to confirm the delineation. But you know what? This is going to happen whether we wanted to or not, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean there are greater parties here than the Freetown the Conservation Commission.
Well,
so,
I can tell you that you know what was explained to me was from the Central Mass DEP a number of years ago, and I've been told right out that other DEP regions may have a different interpretation of how the boxes should be checked.
Well, you know what? This is you're asking for that, and I have no problem giving it to you because again, it's almost an administrative thing. We do this every few years to confirm the delineation, confirm that you can in fact put down the vegetative control. I have no problem moving forward on this. Does anybody else have any issues with this? I mean,
Good.
If not, then I
Nope.
will do. Okay. I'll entertain a motion that we issue a negative determination number 3 for work in the buffer zone and number 5 for exempt activity in the riverfront. Additionally, a positive determination 2A confirming the accuracy of the resource boundaries.
Motion made.
Thank you.
I'll support his motion.
Thank you. Motion made, supported. There's no further discussion on the motion. Roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mallon.
Aye.
Chris is aye. Kevin Damaris says aye. It passes unanimous. All right, we'll write that up, Tom. I have permission to sign for the board, so we usually get those things signed in a day or two, and then we'll ship them out to you.
That's perfect. Thank you for your time.
And we're going to be sending them all the way up to Maine, huh?
Yeah, you can. Even though I actually live in Mass, but all of the stuff goes through Maine. I'll pick it up when I get there.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
All right, no problem. If you need anything else, contact our office.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a great day. You too now. Bye-bye. Okay, next on our agenda, we have number 3. This is a notice of intent. This is for 32 Middleborough Road. If I remember, this is a brand new filing. So this is a brand new filing. I will call the public hearing to order. Again, notice of intent. This is for 32 Middleborough Road. This is for the installation of proposed ground-mounted solar array. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing notice.
So moved.
I will support that motion.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, roll call. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Chris Mallon.
Aye.
Charlie says aye, Chris says aye, Kevin Damaris says aye, passes unanimous. What we did there, folks, again, if there are interested parties in this is, again, for the 32 Middleborough Road. I know we received some letters of concern from abutters. I just need to clarify, this is a Conservation Commission public hearing, so our interests are only in the proposed work and that proposed work that sits within the buffer zone to a wetland area. Our authority is limited to just the Wetlands Protection Act and enforcement of that. So I know some of the letters or a letter had expressed some other concerns that are outside. More than likely that is a planning board issue. So I would just ask if there are interested parties that they would keep their questions and comments just relative to the wetlands and or wetland impact. So going back to my previous announcement or statement, you can find these on our Town of Freetown website, and the plans are there, the actual notice of intent, the stormwater report, and an initial peer review has been done for this. So typically how it works, we'll ask the applicant to make a presentation. After that, we open it up to questions or comments from the general public and or the board. Politely get my attention, raise your hand on the screen. Victoria will get my attention. If you are calling in by phone, simply just say, "Excuse me," state your name, and then ask your question. All the questions should be directed through the chairman, but will be answered by the applicant, just so we can keep it orderly. And we are obviously recording this for the YouTube channel. So that being said, who is here for, CVE North America? Is that Ryan Young?
Well, this is Rich Tabazinski.
Oh, how you doing, Richard? You're from Atlantic Design. Okay.
Yes, and I do know that, I do see that Ryan Young is on also from
Okay.
CVE.
Yes, thank you.
And
You're welcome.
just so you know, Attorney Chris Markey's here for the property owner, the current property owner.
How are you, Attorney Markey?
Good, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Great.
Okay. So you can go ahead and start making your presentation, please.
Sure, yeah, I'll start by just the quick description of the site. It's addressed as 32 Middleborough Road, but basically it's, the site's a 16-acre site that's at the end of, and abuts a private way, Claremont Way, which is a private road that comes off of Middleborough Road. And the site's was was previously a subdivision was approved on the property of an 8-lot subdivision a couple years ago, actually 2017, I believe. The Planning Board and the Conservation Commission had looked at it, where they proposed a subdivision of 8 lots on the property. And so that subdivision was never came to fruition. So the owners have decided to enter into an agreement and propose a solar development on the rear or eastern portion of the property. Of the 16-acre site, the proposed project will take up about 8.7 acres is the size of the array. And it's, again, at the kind of, basically it's proposed at the end of Claremont Way in the wooded area to the rear, to the east. The wetlands were reflagged recently by Sebacia out of Bourne here. They were the same group that had flagged the wetlands for the subdivision project a few years ago. So they went out and reflagged and refreshed things on the site in terms of the wetlands, and found the conditions, the wetland conditions, to be basically the same as what was originally looked at for the subdivision plan. But basically, there's a wetland system on the western portion of the property that runs from south to north and flows into a culvert underneath Claremont Way, and then flows out to the north on the other side of Claremont Way. And there's a border of
Hold
vegetated
on
wetland
half a
that
second.
surrounds that.
I apologize. I did not give you the
Sure.
opportunity. Would you like to do a screen share? If not, that's okay.
suppose Yeah, I can bring up the set of site plans if that makes sense.
Okay, Victoria, will you give him authority to? All set. You now have authority to screen share. I didn't mean to get you off your stride there, but I felt it was important.
Nope, no problem. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet. Who did you give? Oh, give it to Ryan too. Who wants it, Rich or Ryan?
Rich,
Okay, yeah, yeah. All right, we haven't seen it yet. It hasn't come up yet. There we
There
go,
it is.
all set, thank you.
Well, the existing conditions plan is kind of what I was talking about here. So basically, the wetland system is on the western portion of the property. I'm kind of following the wetland line right here. And it flows in a culvert underneath Claremont Way, flows from the south to the north in this direction. The other wetland that was, we've noted on the plan, was basically the edge of this cranberry bog on the northeast corner of the site. So based on those two wetland delineations, there's a 100-foot buffer that encroaches onto the property here. And then a 100-foot buffer that is shown in this dashed line here that encroaches into the site. So the proposed development is on, this is the overall drawing. There's some larger scale drawings if we need to look at anything more detail. But this is the proposed development of the 8.7 acres within the fenced in area. Shows the access road coming in off of the end of Claremont Way and in a T-shaped pattern here to go to the equipment pads for the solar system. Stormwater basin on the northern end of the site. And then again, a surrounding fence line, security fence that will go around the whole entire system. And that will be basically along the limit of clearing, will be just outside that fence line in this, as shown on these drawings here. So the work that's within the buffer zone of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission is very limited in relationship to the solar array itself. All of the solar panels are outside the 100-foot buffer. And the limit of work, which would be the clearing outside the fence line, is still quite a ways away from the wetland boundary. It's at the outer limits of the 100-foot buffer. For instance, up in here, the 100-foot buffer kind of goes right through this line right here. So there's just a bit of the stormwater measures and some clearing in the buffer zone, and there's basically about a 70 to 80 foot distance between the wetland edge and the limit of work up in this northeast corner. And the same thing kind of applies on the southern portion of the property down in this area where I'm pointing. The 100-foot buffer is right along the very limit of where the clearing is going to be. So the closest that we are in this location is about 90 feet from the wetland edge. So we've maintained a very good wooded buffer between the major wetland areas on the site and the solar array. The other portion of the project that's within the jurisdiction here of the Conservation Commission is along Claremont Way. So as I mentioned before, the wetland boundaries is on the north and south side of Claremont Way and basically flows underneath Claremont Way in a culvert in this location right here. So in order to access the array Claremont Way right now is only about a 10, maybe 10, 11 foot wide paved roadway. And it provides access to, I think, 3 residences, 2 on the south side and 1 on the north side. But basically, it's only about 10 feet wide. So in order to access the array with the equipment, emergency vehicles, and the utility companies, we proposed a widening of it to a minimum of about 16 feet wide. And that widening will take place all on the south side of the roadway. We just looked at the existing roadway, and there's utility poles and some other constraints on the north side. So we thought that the widening would be the least disruptive and easier to complete on the south side of the roadway. It'll end up, being variable in width because the existing Claremont Way is kind of variable, but it'll range from 3 feet wide to maybe 5 feet wide of widening, and that will be comprised of a compacted gravel. We're not proposing to pave anything in that area, just basically propose some compacted gravel about 5 feet wide on the south side. We don't anticipate having to clear any trees or do any grading or anything associated with that widening. The total length that's in the buffer zone here is of widening in these strips is about 150, 160 feet. And so that's the other bit of work that's within the buffer zone to the wetland areas on the site. We'll be proposing some erosion control measures, obviously, at these limits of work. And I feel that, again, pretty minor in terms of a project in relationship to the Wetlands Act. We're on the outskirts of 100-foot buffers, and except for here where we really don't have much choice, the wetland boundary comes right up to the existing roadway. So, but I feel with the proposing gravel instead of pavement, and also just providing erosion control, that these wetlands will be protected with this work that's close to them in that area. We know we have a review from EPG in terms of the stormwater on the site. Again, most of that is outside the buffer zone, but it does, obviously, it's affecting the Wetlands Protection Act because it's the DEP stormwater management standard. So we will work with EPG and come up with responses to their comments, and have to resubmit to the commission and to the planning board at some point. But we feel we should be able to address their comments without any major changes to the site plan. So that's basically it for the presentation. And I'll leave it open for questions unless Ryan or Attorney Markey wanted to add anything to my presentation, but that's where I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. And again, you are right. You have limited, in this instance, you've limited the amount of work, but in fact there is some, and we do have a bite of the apple through the Stormwater Management Act, and the fact that the end game is that stormwater is meant to recharge the wetlands. I do have a question. So you show basically a subdivision layout of Claremont Way. Is that what it looks like today? And Attorney Markey, maybe you can help me out with this. We've rescinded the subdivision approval, right? We've removed that. Does this, or is that what it looked like prior to the subdivision approval?
Yes, that's what
Yes.
that would look like before the
Okay, I thought that's what's on what's on our GIS, and so I do appreciate that. But I needed to get a little bit of clarity on that. Okay, I'm trying to scroll through. I don't see any detail work relative to, any kind of work around that culvert. I'm gonna give you a heads up. I know it doesn't have anything to do with Concom. But there is a concern on the structural integrity, if I'm not mistaken, in the prior filing on the subdivision. It was due to be replaced, I think, because the road was going to be widened and all. So don't be surprised if you're asked to look at that. But again, I only tie that in because there is water and there's a connectivity between the wetlands. So if we are going to, if that is going to have to happen, then obviously you'll need to adjust your plans. So at this time, is there anybody here from the public that has any questions? Anybody raising their hand or trying to get my attention? Okay.
Shelley Hopkins raised her hand.
Okay, I see we have Shelley Hopkins, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So now I don't have to deal for you. I actually stated your name. You live on Claremont Way, if I'm not mistaken?
Correct. I'm the owner
Okay.
for Claremont Way.
Excellent. So if you have a question, please feel free to ask.
Sure. The existing driveway or Claremont Way lane is now, asphalt pavement. So I'm concerned because we have had significant drainage issues and whatnot. Can somebody just help me understand the reasoning behind replacing it with gravel and not with additional asphalt? It sounded to me like there was a reason
Yep.
behind that for erosion. So I'm just trying to understand why it would be gravel and not asphalt, which is what it currently is.
Mm-hmm. So, applicant?
Well, basically, we're not replacing the part that's paved right now will stay in place, but just we need to widen it a little bit on the southern side. So instead of widening it with pavement, we were proposing to just add gravel. Basically, it's less runoff, less impervious surface, and would be suitable for the access that's needed to the solar array. But the rest of the roadway will still be paved. It's just the widening portion that's going to be gravel.
Okay, and forgive me if this is something that we would need to take to the planning board, but who would be responsible for maintaining that? If there was erosion or anything along those lines, because we already have issues with, potholes and things like that with erosion. So just concerned that, our access to our property will be difficult if any of that washes away.
Yeah, so Shelley, that's a very good question. And part of it is a planning board issue, but at the same time, relative to washing away, and then that could in fact make its way to the wetland. Siltation control needs to be put in place along any area where they're going to be working within 100 feet of the wetland. And so they would have to, and that's why I kind of brought it up a little bit earlier. I see details of what they look like. I just don't see a detail of maybe where you'd be putting that stuff on the road to protect the wetlands. I don't see a location on there. I could just be looking at the wrong plan set, so forgive me. Well, what is that hash? What is that line there?
Yeah, the thicker dash
I see it.
hash is the
Yeah.
erosion control.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's basically between the existing driveway to the, I'm going to say west, and then the existing driveway to the east, right? You've just got that. And then on the opposite side, it goes for a little longer length. Okay. I will say this, and I've spent enough time out there to know there has been and continues to be, and it was going to be addressed in the actual subdivision filing that was previously approved. There have been times where we have a wet spring, whatever the case may be, heavy rainfall, percolation rates over there are not all that good, and what ends up happening, we have a lot of overland flow that sometimes can make its way straight across the actual roadway and then get into the wetlands. So there's been an ongoing concern. We really can't fix that here. all we can require them to do is to ensure that should an event like that happen, that they would protect the wetlands. Planning board may want to look at and consider ease of access and egress. Is it suitable for its intended use? And they have in the past required improvements to access. So I'm not trying to put you off, Shelley, but that part of it, you know, relative to construction, asphalt versus gravel, we react to what they propose. Planning board really would have a greater role in dictating means and type of construction and what does meet safe, smart accessibility.
Well,
So.
thank you. I appreciate that. This kind of new to me, so I wasn't sure who did what.
No,
so.
listen, Shelley,
I appreciate it.
you're doing a bang-up job, and I appreciate your letter, and I appreciate you asking these questions.
Thank you.
You know, we're a small, 5-member volunteer board, and we oftentimes rely on folks within the neighborhood, folks who've historically been there for a while, to give us some sort of perspective so we can better address those during the permitting process. So thank you on that.
Thank you.
Yep. Is there anything else from anybody else? Okay, I do agree, Rich and Ryan, that you have tried to mitigate as much of your wetland buffer zone incursion as possible. It's nice to see that there's no filling of the wetlands, no replication necessary. But I will tell you that I think even if it's not for this board, but for the planning, you'll probably want to look at seasonal high water and look at, when you go out there and you look at Claremont Way, it's been ripped up pretty bad because of freeze and thaw and the water and all. So I think you probably want to look at that to see if whatever you're trying to do couldn't be more robust, or and in that case protecting the wetlands a little bit more. So last I'm going to talk about the roadway and the accessibility relative to this project on Concom. Does anybody from the board have any questions, comments, or concerns? As you stated, this is still undergoing peer review. We received peer review April 6th. I'm assuming you are formulating your response to peer review. And if you haven't already given that to them, you will shortly, and then hopefully we would get something in time for our next meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. The delineation was approved with the subdivision. I'm trying to remember back, and I can't. We've done a number of things over the last several years. Has that delineation been previously approved? That's the question. If you don't know the answer right now, that's fine. We can look at that, look into that, because if not, then obviously, like the other projects you're working on, we would send out somebody to look at the delineation to make sure that we are, in fact, what you're offering is representative.
Yeah,
So I believe
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
this is Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
Thank you. Every indication, we pulled the file from the previous subdivision that Nil sent over, and it was previously approved, and everything we did is consistent with as it was previously delineated.
Okay. As long, and again, folks that are new to this, delineated, wetland line approved, you'll be driving down the road, you see some wet areas, and you see a bunch of flags tied around them. Wetland scientists go out there, they tie the flags, and then they ask us, is this the correct location of the wetlands? Excuse me. If we approve this under a former filing, then I don't think that this board, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but typically we move forward with that, considering we approved it once. And I would say this too, there's a level of comfort given that you're not asking to encroach within 20 feet or 15 feet where that line moving a little bit might be a problem for you. And the bog is pretty well delineated. It's bog or it's not, right? We'll check to confirm. I believe you're right, Ryan, that in fact it was delineated and approved by us. But if not, we would just simply ask that, if you haven't already on the notice of intent, just amend that to ask us to approve the delineation at that time.
Okay, if I could add just,
Please.
I have a copy of the definitive subdivision plan, and it does have the Freetown Conservation Commission stamp on it with a signature of at 11/6/17. So it does, to me, it sounds like everything was.
No, more than likely that's the case. It sounds like
Yep.
that. And my recollection is that, and so I just, but understanding 17, permits expire in 3 years. As we know, wetlands, they can grow and shrink and grow and shrink. If you've gone out and fortified those, and again, we're not working with too much within the buffer zone. I get it. And if it has been previously approved and that's represented on this plan, then I believe we can move forward. But, all right. Anything else from the board? Okay. If there's nothing else from the public right now, all right, and the applicant's representative, nothing else to present tonight? Okay, then I would suggest that we follow on that timeline. Well, I'll ask, do you anticipate having a response to EPG in time for them to do the review and then get back to us? Our next meeting is the 26th.
Well, what we did want to do was have the planning board meeting first, which I think is the 20th.
It is.
So, yeah, we wanted to have, we have.
Oh, okay, all right. So I understand exactly what you're saying. Okay, then what would be our next meeting in May?
May 10th.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. A procedural thing here. We've been informed by our local town administration that the governor has signed an executive order that will allow in-person meetings. And I will not ask for an answer tonight. This is later on our agenda, but we can just broach the subject now. I need to gauge whether we're going to be going back to in-person meetings, and so I'm going to expect an answer from the board members on the 26th. So what I'm going to do is, just for administrative purposes only, I'm going to continue this to the 26th. I don't want to continue this into May via Zoom if we've decided that we want to go to in-person, because then you understand what I'm saying. So we'll continue this to the 26th. Obviously, it's just a matter of we'll continue with that night, and that way I'll have a better idea of whether we're going to go to in-person and or we're going to stay with Zoom. I can tell you I'm looking to do some sort of hybrid to try to accommodate everybody, because I'm a people pleaser. And so I want to make it so that if people don't want to necessarily or feel comfortable or can't get down to the new police station meeting room, then they could certainly join us by Zoom. We're trying to work that out right now. So at this point in time, again, just for our administrative purposes, I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for 32 Middleborough Road, CVE North America, for the proposed ground-mounted solar array to April 26th, 5 o'clock via Zoom.
So moved.
I need a second. Chris, are you muted? Is Chris with us?
Yeah, he's.
No, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Okay, I just need a second, Chris, that's all. If I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna fully support that motion right there.
Thank you very much. So motion made and supported to continue to April 26th, 5 o'clock via Zoom. If there's no further discussion on the motion, roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather.
All right,
Chris Mather, aye. Kevin Damaris, aye. Motion passes unanimously. So those interested parties, you heard what we said. You will not be receiving another green card or any kind of official notification So this is where a little bit of the shared responsibility, we have a job to do and you guys have a job to do. If there's a question on when it's on the agenda next, you can certainly go online and look at our agenda. If it hasn't been posted, you could certainly call the town hall and ask, and we will get back to you, whether it's a phone call or email, to let you know. Oftentimes, we will have a situation where it's on the actual agenda that night, but for whatever reason, we're going to ask for a continuation like we did with the ones prior this evening because of peer review. So I always recommend people, before they decide to carve out a couple hours of their life in the evening, give us a call if you'd like, and we'll let you know if in fact it's going to be continued or not. But right now, that's the plan. It'll get continued on the 26th, but we'll just have to figure out whether it's in person or not. Okay, sorry. Have a good evening, folks. Appreciate you coming down and participating. And if there's any questions or comments, reach out to the office and we'll get back to you. Okay?
Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Have a great night, guys.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, I'm going to
Thank
use
you.
chairman's prerogative. I'm going to take item number 8. This is to meet with the Forest Committee. I don't know if there's any members of the Forest Committee here. I heard that they were going to have a difficult time getting here tonight. But the most important part is we have Phil Benjamin to discuss the forest management plans that have been proposed for several Conservation Commission properties. Just so you know, our prior clerk and I believe Mike McHugh is with us. Do we have him on there, Victoria? Yeah. And Mike, I know you didn't want to say anything, but I'm going to force you to. So unmute yourself, my friend. What's your position now as far as coordinating this? What are we officially calling you now? Is he not saying anything? Oh, he's muted. Well, he's still muted. Long story short, Mike had volunteered because he has been so successful in helping write some of these forestry grants along, and I say write, I think with a lot of the help from Phil Benjamin to do this. So I wanted to give him a little bit of credit. But since he's muted, we're not going to do that. So, Mr. Benjamin, if you would like to...
I must be muted on your end because I'm not muted down there.
What do you mean? Oh, hold on. He's just walked into my office. How can you not be muted down?
I'm not. So
How do you know you're not muted? You can hear yourself
I
talk?
unmuted the phone.
Yeah? Muted
Michael.
over here. All right. Well, you know what? He's here. What's your position now? What do we
You
name
call
you?
me open space consultant.
Yeah, he's an open space consultant, which is, you know, a fancy way of saying a volunteer who's going to make sure that this program continues in the right direction. So, with that being said, Mr. Benjamin, if you'd like to make a presentation, that would be great, and just explain to us the good work that you've been doing and/or proposing to do.
All right, well, thank you. I'm Phil Benjamin, and my associate, Tom Farrell, there is listed as P. Benj on his laptop. We heard from Mike McHugh this fall that he was definitely interested, or there was interest in learning more about some of the Conservation Commission parcels in town. Last year, we did plans on the Porter Pasture and on the Betsy Tabor Wildlife Sanctuary. 2 smaller parcels, but really interesting. And then Mike sent along the applications that have been approved by DCR and kind of triggered a real exploration, I think, on Tom's and my behalf. There were 4 parcels in town. Bryant Street lot, Tom was able to spend, he was the only one on that property. That was a little bit of a challenge to get into when you work with Mike McHugh and a few other people to figure out how to get in there. And then we also did work on the Howland Road parcel between Howland Road and the railroad tracks. We did, there's another parcel known as off of Christopher Way or Proprietor's Way, or between the 2 of them. And then the last one was a High Plain lot, which was over off of Bullock Road. And all 4 of them were pretty different properties, and we covered the ground on each of them. Each was pretty different, pretty rugged. So what we've done is we've pretty mapped out the properties based on what's growing there in terms of tree species. And then we drew up a list of recommendations as far as management work might that could be considered. I think Tom, weigh in at any time, but I think the challenge will be more access into some of these parcels than the actual work that could be done, either through wetlands or limited frontage. There are some challenges, but they're just a really interesting parcels nonetheless. Tom, do you want to weigh in a little bit?
It seemed like most of the parcels, well, actually all the parcels, were a good mix of uplands and wetlands, and then the transitional area in between those in between those two defined areas. So, like Phil was saying, a lot of the property could use some management work, but accessing through the wet areas or the transitional areas is difficult. Each one has its sort of own challenges. The Bryant Street lot is about 20 acres, landlocked, and but there is an access road that comes out of the quarry that's right next door. And I believe it crosses the quarry's property, and then there might be another private landowner in between that and the town's piece. But the reality is there's a couple wells out there. So the roadway, although it's a wood road and it's rugged, it seems to be maintained at least to those wells. So there is possible access out there, but it's difficult because of the multiple landowners in between. I'm not sure. Out there, like I said, the access is going to be difficult for any kind of traditional commercial forestry work. But there is a small pocket of invasive species out there that is small enough for volunteers to possibly be able to handle. And it's small enough where you want to tackle it now before it really gets a hold of the whole property and starts kind of infiltrating the wetlands as well. Right now, it's just this really small, isolated pocket in kind of the northeast corner of that property.
What's the invasive species?
I believe there was bittersweet.
Oh yeah, good
there
luck
might have been
getting
another one with it, but there was bittersweet, and it flirts with the corner of the quarry, the landowner to the north, and then you guys. And so it's, like I said, it's relatively small right now. It's not up in the trees and dragging trees down yet. But if you've seen examples of what bittersweet can do, they keep on growing and keep on getting stronger and stronger. And then what we're finding is once their vines are like kind of entangled in the trees, any type of windstorm or even a heavy wet snow with some wind, they just seem to topple over because of that tension from the vines. But like I said, it's not really like that right now. So it's a good time to get in there. Because of the size of the parcel and the location is probably the biggest priority out there. It's got the west side has a beautiful brook that flows through it and some really, really nice wetlands, kind of a couple different wetlands. There's one that's really young that surrounds the brook, and then it kind of filters out into a more mature red maple forest. So although, no commercial forestry work would ever be done there, the habitat is really valuable, protecting that water quality from the stream. And being landlocked, that's kind of priceless out there.
That's interesting.
Did you guys have a? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you guys have a chance to? I don't know whether the plans were distributed or not. I know it takes about 8 times to read each one of those before things start to filter out, start making sense. I didn't know.
I'm trying to get some clarity on it. Okay. So to answer your question, I've not had an opportunity to dive into them in any depth or detail.
Oh, that's fine. There's a lot there.
There is a lot there, and Victoria is politely reminding me that I emailed them to you, and I said yes, and I briefly looked at them with the intent to get back and look, and I haven't done that. and I'm not too ashamed to admit that. And I apologize, I had to step out of the office for a couple seconds at the beginning of the presentation. What's the next step now?
Well, from a paperwork point of view, the next step is similar to what we did last year. I would need signatures. I believe the ones I sent to Victoria, were they checked? Were the signature pages checked on the copies I sent to you, Victoria?
On the
On the
PDF
plans?
copy?
Yeah.
I'm
If not, what I can do is I'll print out the signature pages. There's 2 signature pages for each plan, but one of them is actually just, it's the survey, that's a stewardship survey that's,
Right, yep.
that gives the Conservation Commission a chance to think what's important about these properties to them. So that's filled out and signed, the signature page is signed, and then the paperwork for Mike Downey at DCR needs to be signed. But I can put that in the mail, and mail it down to Victoria this week. If you guys
That'd be
don't
great.
in front of you. And then I would just
It
need
does,
those. What was
it
that?
does look like in some of the emails, I think the signature pages are separate attachments in the emails.
Right.
Okay. So they could be printed off, signed, and then returned to me.
Okay.
I'll need to get I'll have to figure out the invoice and get that down to you as well, but it was more
Yeah,
important.
that's important.
Well, that part I appreciate, but it was more, or is as important to have this conversation tonight. There was one thing on that Howland Road property that Tom and I wanted to share with you, is that although it's a pretty massive wetland system there along Fall Brook, there's a really interesting possibility just for you guys to kind of keep in the back of your minds as a potential project sometime on the road. But there's a pretty nice area you can pull off of East Howland Road there on the east side of the property. And there's a little fringe of uplands. There's one house to the north of the frontage on Howland Road. But then as you go due west, it's a seasonally wet swamp. It's not a soaking wet one. So it could be used different times of the year. Not so much for equipment, but there's a couple of nice, actually pretty impressive upland knolls. And Tom, you take it from there, because you had the chance to get out there and really soak those up.
Yeah, they're really unique in the sense no equipment has probably ever been able to get in there easily. So whether they're even known about is a mystery, but they just rise up off the ground about 2, 3, 4 feet compared to the surrounding wetlands. And then what you have is these really, really large white pine trees, mature trees, and underneath them is just dense holly, almost a holly grove.
Really?
So it's really unique. The size of the pine trees, they're blocking out a lot of sun. But then the hollies are taking up any bit of sun that's kind of filtering through there.
Right.
So underneath the holly trees, it's sort of bare ground because it's just so shaded, and mosses are growing. And so it's this, aesthetically, when you get there, it's really kind of neat. You can kind of, you just feel like you're in Oregon or something like that, with the Pacific Northwest, with the darkness, the moss. They're just really interesting.
So this isn't this wouldn't be. I know you said the white pines are old. This is not an old growth forest, though.
Has the potential.
Yeah.
Does it really?
It'd be interesting.
Wow.
They're much bigger than a lot of trees that we see in the area. And
yeah, I've been looking a bit into it. I've heard the stories. There's only one area in the state that's got old growth forest, right? The tallest pine tree is 185 feet in the state, or something along those lines. I forget now.
Yeah, and the thing that's with those areas that I've heard about out in the western part of the state, I believe there's like some areas in the Berkshires and the Mount Toby area. But the thing about those areas, you couldn't access them. They were either too stony or ledgy, and so those trees just, they just happen to sit there. So that characteristic of being in kind of a unique spot,
Yeah.
that's going on there in Freetown.
Isn't that something?
They're really surrounded by really, really wet areas. Like Phil said, they're not impossible to pass at certain times of the year. So I'm not going to put it past someone at some point in time was able to get out there with, machinery back in the day. But it's been a long time since anybody's gone back there, it seems like.
And we were thinking of it almost more as a walking destination. I don't know how many of the properties are open up to the public or whether people actually even get out there and do much more. The High Plains lot, there's a lot of quad activity along the gas line. But there's some properties where, like Porter Pasture, people can just kind of walk in there and just kind of soak it up. And this would be more of a walking destination. It's just something for the Conservation Commission to kind of keep in the back of your mind.
I think at the end of the day, whether we're able to act or take up an action plan in the near future, I don't know. But what's most important is to identify it and protect it going forward. So that if and when the town has the appetite, the money, the desire, the personnel to do these things, that they're readily available to us at that time. So that's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and the cool thing too, to add to that, is you could put a trail out there, and it's not like, because there's multiple little islands of upland out there, it's not like you have this really unique habitat and you'd be putting a trail there and all of a sudden it'd be really populated. And it's like, okay, well, how's wildlife going to react to all of a sudden a lot of people walking around there? The property has a few different islands. So you could get out to the one Phil's talking about, and at the same time have the other 2 or 3 be sort of like reserves where no one's really going to get there. They're just wild.
Yeah, no, that's pretty neat stuff, man. My hope and intent is that if in 10 years time from now that we're in a better place. Concom has a lot of property under its jurisdiction and control, but oftentimes the accessibility is diminished. And, catch-22, as soon as you put a parking lot and a big sign that says come on in, you may in fact be inviting problems. But at the same time, nature should be there for all of us to enjoy. So, but it's a conversation we have to have going forward. That's no worries.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to ask that if you continue to work through Mike as the open space coordinator, if you will.
Okay. Yep.
CCing Victoria, obviously we need to be in the loop here, but I know we're not paying Mike anything, but I'd like to keep him in the loop on this and keep him involved. So that would be great. So all we have to do is sign a few things, get them back to you, and then we're good to go?
Yep.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Do you guys anticipate being down in our area again, looking at anything?
Well, we're in a mad sprint to the end of June with the other plans that have the same funding that Mike was able to secure for you. But after the end of June, we'll be able to take a deep breath. I know we've been wanting to look at Porter Pasture, based on last year's conversation. And we can stay in touch with Mike about that.
The only reason why I ask, it's a little selfish. Victoria is relatively new to our world. She has a nice environmental degree and all. And she's very, very, she's enthusiastic. And what I'm trying to do is get her field experience also. So if you do find an occasion, after June, July, whatever it is, to be in the area and you need to go out, if you could coordinate that with Victoria so that she might be able to get out there too, get some eyes on the ground. Kevin's not going to be around forever. Victoria's young, so she may be around a little bit longer than me. So that would be, that's true. That's true. So if there's nothing else, gentlemen, I'd like to say I do appreciate it. Mike, I know you started this process, so I got to give some credit where credit's due. But the folks, Mr. Benjamin and your staff and the folks that you have worked with, very impressive. We thank you very much. If it's not for folks like you, some of these things don't get done. We simply don't have the resources or the time or the personnel to do it. So thank you very much for all that you've done for us, and we hope to continue to work with you in the future.
Good. Good. We'd look forward to it. And thank you. It was really interesting to get out on those properties. And now at least you have sort of a baseline of information for those properties for when you do have the time to take a look.
Yep.
We'll definitely stay in touch with Mike, and we'll look forward to meeting Victoria. And thank you and the committee for your time tonight.
Sure thing, guys. Have a great evening. Stay safe, and if you need anything, certainly reach out to us.
All right.
Good,
Thank you
thanks.
very much.
All
right.
Have a great night. Yep.
Good night. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. We did that right away. Moving on. Item number 6, this is a continued notice of intent. I will call that back to order for 9 Marie's Way. Niall Zager, Zenith Consulting. This is construction of a single-family home and private well. Again, folks, if you're here for this, you can go on our website, Conservation Commission section, current filings, and you will see this is a previously opened public hearing, and it was presented to us. We had asked that a couple of changes be made, and revised plans have been provided to us. Additionally, because there was work proposed within the riverfront area, an alternative analysis was required, and that has also been provided to us. I'm not going to do your job for you tonight there, Mr. Zager, so why don't you, I will call this back to order, and go ahead, Mr. Zager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any chance I can have permission to share my screen?
Yes, there is a new fee system now. It's $25.
Paid out to Kevin Damaris?
Well, no, the Town Forestry Committee, that would be great.
Yeah.
Double the fee.
Double it. All right, you have got permission.
Thank you.
There you go.
Everyone can see that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So at the last meeting, like you just said, there was a couple changes that needed to be made. One being there was a concern about the area, and a rightfully so one, the area where the proposed well is. So what we did was we added a double row of silt sock here, just to give a little bit more stabilization, because as we know, when we're doing these wells, there is backwash and what have you. So we did add that as requested. And then we also provided a note on the plan that the conservation signs that will be provided at the 25 foot, basically it's the work limit, will be provided along this work limit here. And I believe that's something that the commission has exactly what you want. For the applicant to say, I'm assuming we can make that a condition of the approval. And lastly was the riverfront analysis, alternatives analysis, as you stated. And we provided that. I won't bore you with that, but basically we provided that. It's a one-sheet thing that we provided for our record, to put in the folder as well. So besides that,
I will add one more deal too. I had asked if I could go out to do an inspection to confirm the wetland delineation. I did that 2 weeks ago, maybe. And I can state unequivocally that as it's represented on the plans, the wetland delineation is accurate. And I will do it for you on the alternatives analysis. I think it's simple. The conclusion is, due to the required zoning setbacks, real estate costs of the property and abutting properties, as well as the needs of the applicant purchasing the property, there is no viable alternative. It's a requirement for work within the riverfront area. Not that they're not letting you do what you want to do. They're asking you, why are you doing it there and not someplace else? And after you've been on the site, you can see that they've kept the septic system as far away as possible. The house is a good bit away. This does, in fact, meet the threshold, in my opinion, of an alternatives analysis. I just figured you took the time to do it, Niall, so you might as well get credit for it. So again, that being said, this is the revised plans. Is there anybody here, any interested parties here that would like to comment or question? I think the last time I was out there, Niles, I told them that we will in fact provide the placards. We have a good number of them here, so we will provide them free of charge to them. Additionally, just a polite reminder to make sure that they have their DEP SE file number up, that typically, and to get the siltation control in place also before we go any further. But no interested parties, nothing from our board? Okay. That being said, then I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I will support the motion made by the gentleman.
Motion made and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Chris Mather.
Aye.
Charlie says aye. Chris says aye. Kevin Demarais says aye. Motion passes unanimously to close the public hearing. Okay, now this is a notice of intent. So typically what we do is we approve the plans as submitted with any conditions. So I will state that this plan set, what's the new date on it? 4/12, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion that we approve the plan set dated 4/12/21 as presented, with the condition that as called out on their plans, that the conservation filing signs or the conservation area signs be put up at the 25-foot BVW buffer zone offset. So I'll entertain that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I will support that motion.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mallon.
Aye.
Chris is aye. Kevin Demarais states aye. Motion passes unanimously. Now, how do you want to do this? Do you want us to send out the paperwork to you, and then you can have the applicant and or her husband, I think it is, come down and pick up the...
Typically, please mail it to us. Typically, we record it for the applicant, just to make sure it's done and, done properly and we get everything over. So if you could send it.
Yeah, we'll send that. I just don't want to mail the metal placards. So if we can just make sure that either the applicant or somebody from your office, if they want to come down and pick them up.
Understood. I'll let the applicant know. I will let the applicant know that they're at the office. And
why do I have this feeling I'm going to be getting a call from Jeff, and I'm going to be hand delivering these things?
I would hope not.
Because that's the kind of guy I am. Anyway, all right. So you know the drill. We'll sign those things. We'll get them off to you as soon as we can.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too now. Thanks again. Okay. So next, new business, discuss rules and regulations. So it was brought to my attention due to, because the state will be filing, and we had to continue theirs tonight. They're going to be filing with us to do some remediation and construction, I think, of some ATV and motorcycle trails within the state forest. And that's to get them out of wet areas and put them in more protected areas and make them more robust and try to keep them, keep the motorcyclists in the trail. And part of it was, we have our own rules and regulations that were adopted many, many moon ago, right, Victoria? But unfortunately, and I think this is just an omission that everybody no one caught. Item number 4, it says, any person filing a permit or other application or RDA with the Conservation Commission at the same time shall give written notice thereof by certified mail or hand delivered to all abutters. That shouldn't say RDA, that should say NOI. And so, because an RDA we do not require, nor does the state require, notification of abutters for request for determination of applicability. So leave it up to somebody from the state to catch that, because I argued with them. I said, there's no way that we require that. It's never happened, except it's written there, and so I'd entertain a motion if there's any other questions. If not, I'd entertain a motion that we change that sentence to read or NOI rather than an RDA.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Immediately.
Thank you. Motion being supported. If there's no further conversation on the motion, roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris says aye, and Kevin Damaris says aye. Well, thank you. That was pretty good. We have a proposed article. You may or may not know, I am the chairman. Well, Charlie, you'll know this. I'm the chairman now of the Soil Conservation Board. In other words, the soil board, right? If you want to have a gravel pit, you want to commercially remove materials, minerals, and soils from the town of Freetown, and then sell them, you need a soil board permit. Typically, what's made the soil board up is the 3 selectmen, a member of Concom, and a member of the planning board. Years ago, there was actually 2 more members, and Mike can correct me, but I think we either had a member at large, and then we had the highway surveyor, if I'm not mistaken. We've whittled it down to 2. It was tough forcing elected officials, i.e. the highway surveyors, into doing something that they might not necessarily want to do. Additionally, sometimes getting a quorum with 7 members that are going in 12 different directions. So, but what's happened more recently is there's a desire, and I've confirmed this when we had our soil board meeting. The selectmen, I don't believe, want to be the soil board any longer. They think it's outside of their wheelhouse, and we're trying to find remedies for that. The soil board is a local concoction, if you will, right? We created it. Simply, town meeting said this is who's going to be in it or on it. And so the question was posed whether our current Conservation Commission members would like to be actually act in the capacity of the soil board also. It's kind of more in it's more in our wheelhouse because typically they're working in and around wetlands. I think there's a bit of a planning component too, simply entrance, egress, and that kind of stuff. But this is simply, we have already written the article because the articles were due on the 5th, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, the 5th. With the intent that if you do not have the desire, and we don't have to answer it tonight, it's the same thing with the question whether we want to go back to in-person meetings or not. I'm hoping to get both of these issues, or at least the questions, answered by the 26th. If you folks want, or you feel free, if you will, to reach out to me individually if you want to speak to me about either one of these issues, outside of the meeting. That I don't have a problem with that. I will tell you this, and it's the same thing I told the planning board members. I am fine with getting back together at the police station, not here at Town Hall where we're jammed up, in a safe manner where we can socially distance. I'd like to also keep it going by Zoom, so if we can do the hybrid. But I will tell you, if there is any individual on the board that does not feel comfortable going to in-person, I told the planning board the same thing, that I will not do it. I simply won't do it. I'm not going to put volunteers in a spot that they don't feel comfortable. Which is why I'm trying really hard to get this, to try to do the hybrid, so that if in fact we do have somebody that doesn't feel comfortable or simply can't, or they're facing an adverse reaction to the COVID vaccine like I had my second one last week, that they would still be able to participate remotely if need be. So just something to chew on. The soil board, Charlie, you know this, we meet once a year, typically in the fall, or we react to a new filing. So we don't get those very often. We've just received one new filing. Most of them are closing out, so we really only have 5 or 6 permits that are outstanding right now. It takes up one Saturday or Sunday morning. We go around, do an hour or two of inspections at these sites, and then typically it's done at a selectmen's meeting typically, but if these are going to be conservation commissions, we would do it the same night as a Concom meeting. They don't usually take very long. Some of them, if there's no new public hearing, it's a 10 or 15-minute meeting. It's just administrative stuff. So I don't need any answers now. Nobody needs to tell me anything. Just think about it and either get back to me during the week or just if we could have your opinions on the 26th, the next time we meet. That'd be great. Okay, so I touched on the rules and regulations, proposed article, discuss returning to in-person meetings. All right, the next thing we have to do is approve the minutes of 3/22/2021. Has anybody had an opportunity to read them? And if so, would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept them.
And
Thank you.
I will support Mr. Sullivan's motion.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion made and supported to approve the meeting minutes of 3/22/2021. If there's no further discussion on the vote, all those in favor, roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan says aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris says aye. Kevin Demarais says aye. Motion passes unanimously. Anything other business probably come before the board? If you've got nothing, then I will be more than happy to accept the motion to adjourn.
I'll make that
I will
motion.
make the motion. Oh, go
Don't
ahead.
fight over it now. I need a second. Perfect. Motion's been made and supported to adjourn. I will take a roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris?
Aye.
Chris is aye. Kevin says aye. Motion passes unanimously. Gentlemen, folks, thank you for being here. Thanks for participating. Stay safe. And again, you've got my phone number, so reach out to me if you need anything. If not, we'll talk to you on the 26th. Thanks again, guys.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night. Be safe. Yep.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Good night.